It never ceases to amaze me. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, ruler of the most powerful empire of the ancient world, wrote in his private journal Meditations, "We love ourselves more than other people, but for some reason we care about their opinion more than our own." This was true 2,000 years ago, and it's just as true today. Why do we give so much weight to what others think? Why does one comment, one judgment, one disapproving glance derail us from our path? This obsession drains us of energy, clouds our judgment, keeps us from speaking our truth, from acting boldly, from living fully. And yet the Stoics, who lived in the arena, both literal and metaphorical, offer timeless strategies to free ourselves from this trap. This lecture is your Stoic guide to stop caring what people think of you, not by becoming aloof or arrogant, but by becoming disciplined, focused, and anchored in your own values. These are not vague theories. These are battle-tested methods used by the likes of Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Musonius Rufus, and Cato the Younger. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Challenge conventions. There may be no one who better exemplified the art of not caring what people think than Diogenes the Cynic. A radical philosopher, he tested society's conventions daily. He begged in front of statues to train himself to accept rejection. When questioned for walking backward into a theater, he replied, "Yes, I walk backwards into the theater, but you walk backwards through life." One famous moment captures his indifference perfectly. As he was sunbathing, Alexander the Great approached him and asked, "Is there anything I can do for you?" Diogenes simply said, "Yes. Stop blocking my sun." Diogenes understood something that most never grasp. Conventions are illusions. Many of the social rules we follow are arbitrary, and when we blindly obey them, we become prisoners. Diogenes tested them and found them hollow. You don't have to live in a barrel to practice this. You only have to ask yourself, what invisible rules am I following? Who told me I can't wear this, say that, do that? Why do I fear being different? Cato the Younger, widely regarded as the most virtuous Stoic in public life, did the same. He wore dark clothing in a time when senators wore white. He walked barefoot and bareheaded. Plutarch writes he did this to accustom himself to being looked at askance, to being judged. In doing so, he became free from judgment. The first step in not caring what others think is learning to challenge the norms they use to judge you in the first place. This doesn't mean becoming rebellious for its own sake, nor does it mean posturing as someone who doesn't care while secretly seeking approval. It means doing an audit of the beliefs, expectations, and invisible rules society has handed you, and then asking whether those rules are just, meaningful, and aligned with your values. It's about identifying how many of your choices are guided by fear of judgment rather than your own reasoning. To do this, observe your discomforts. If the idea of dressing differently, speaking boldly, or simply saying no causes you anxiety, there may be a hidden social rule operating in the background. Examine it. Challenge it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But what if it's simply unpopular? What if it risks making you look strange? The Stoic answer is, do it anyway, if it is true and right. Like Diogenes and Cato, your goal is not to rebel, but to liberate yourself from the shallow metrics of status and fashion. Real strength is the ability to live out your principles even when they go against the crowd. Real freedom is looking judgment in the face and continuing anyway, grounded in your purpose. By regularly doing small things that defy social pressure, whether it's voicing an unpopular opinion or making a lifestyle choice that feels right for you but odd to others, you train your inner fortress. With every such act, you become less fragile, less reactive, and more sovereign. And in that sovereignty, you become unshakable. Chapter 2. Nobody is thinking about you. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, once had a paralyzing fear of public embarrassment. His teacher, Crates, decided to help him. He handed him a pot of lentil soup and told him to carry it through the bustling marketplace. Then he smashed the pot, spilling the soup all over Zeno's clothes. Zeno wanted to disappear, but Crates smiled. Look around. No one cares. They have their own worries, their own lives. This is the truth. We are not the center of the universe. No one is thinking about us as much as we think. Everyone is absorbed in their own drama, wrapped up in their own concerns, anxieties, aspirations, and fears. Most people walk through life with a mirror in front of their face, barely noticing what's outside their own reflection. Their inner monologue drowns out the external world, and their focus is typically turned inward. They are not watching you. They are watching themselves. This realization is liberating. It relieves the pressure. It dissolves the illusion that the spotlight is always on us. Marcus Aurelius writes, "Think of all the people who once praised you, who now are dust and ashes. Think of all the people you wanted so badly to impress. Who are they now? Most are forgotten. Their opinions, long buried. Their judgments echo nowhere. Even those who once sat in judgment over emperors are now themselves judged by time and mostly erased by it. The monuments of the past are weathered, their names etched into stone but fading nonetheless. When you understand this, you realize how tragic it is to let fleeting, often unqualified opinions dictate your path. These opinions, often coming from people whose names you may never even know, take up space in your mind. They steer you off your course, clouding your intentions with the fog of imagined judgment. Consider how many moments you have withheld your truth, muted your creativity, or stifled your instincts simply because you imagined others might laugh, disapprove, or dismiss you. And how many of those people could you name now? Do their names even matter anymore? The opinions you feared were temporary. The cost you paid was lasting. We often base our hesitation on the imagined scrutiny of people who won't remember us in a week, if they even noticed us in the first place. What we imagine to be a spotlight is really a flashlight flickering between countless distractions. You were never the focus. You were never the subject. You were background noise in someone else's busy mind. Yet if you stopped and observed, you would see that almost no one is truly watching. Their glances are fleeting. Their thoughts are elsewhere. They're absorbed in their own doubts and dilemmas. They are nursing their own wounds, obsessing over their own insecurities, replaying their own past conversations. Their world is filled with internal noise so loud that it drowns out nearly everything else. You are not on a stage. You are not being broadcast 24/7. You are not a character in someone else's screenplay. You are a living, breathing human being entitled to grow, falter, and stretch into your full form without waiting for the crowd to nod in approval. You have a right to evolve, to stumble, to try again. Every second you hesitate for fear of judgment is a second you are delaying your destiny, forfeiting your momentum to imaginary critics who exist more vividly in your own mind than they ever do in the real world. Think of how much creativity has been silenced, how many dreams have been deferred, simply because someone feared a few seconds of side-eye glances or whispers that vanish into nothing. And yet, those dreams could have changed lives, starting with your own. We let these critics haunt us, even though they are nothing more than shadows, projected fears, flickering impressions, not fixed truths. What would you do if no one was watching? How would you speak, act, move through the world? That is your truth. That is your unfiltered, uncensored essence. And in reality, almost no one is watching. The world isn't watching you. It's barely paying attention. People scroll, they skim, they forget, they misinterpret, they move on. Even those who criticize you today will forget what they said tomorrow. Their words, which seem so sharp in the moment, quickly fade like footprints in sand, temporary impressions, erased by the tides of time. Their power only lasts as long as you let it echo inside your head, like a ghost kept alive by your own breath. Use this freedom to try, fail, experiment, and act. Let your story unfold in honest strokes, not filtered poses. Let your words carry weight, not polish. Let your ambition stretch, not shrink. Let your courage grow roots that can hold you upright, even when the storm of public opinion howls around you. You're not on trial. You're living. You are writing your own script, not auditioning for someone else's approval. You were not born to please the crowd. You were born to pursue virtue, to fulfill potential, to embody purpose. That purpose will rarely come with applause in the beginning. Often it is misunderstood, challenged, even ridiculed. But those moments of discomfort are the very fire that tempers you, and life is too precious to spend in a cage of imaginary scrutiny. Every moment spent editing yourself for the expectations of others is a moment stolen from your true self. There is no applause worth trading your soul for. There is no affirmation worth compromising your values for. The more you seek your truth, the more you live it openly, the more the opinions that once felt towering begin to shrink. They become whispers behind a closed window. It is far better to risk criticism in pursuit of your truth than to live safely within the confines of someone else's indifference. The price of conformity is the erosion of self. The reward of authenticity is the quiet, steady growth of inner peace. Live boldly and leave the watchers behind. Let them be spectators while you remain the creator. Let them gossip while you build. Let them snicker while you strive. Let them misunderstand while you master your path. That is how the Stoic walks forward, not untouched by noise, but unmoved by it. With purpose, with clarity, with fire. Let your life be a quiet rebellion against conformity and fear. Let your story be a testament to the freedom found in not needing to be liked, only needing to be true. That is your power. That is your freedom. That is your path, and it is yours alone to walk. Chapter 3. Embrace what makes you unique. In a Rome that valued conformity, Agrippinus stood out. He declined invitations to Nero's feasts, refused to flatter the emperor, and rejected luxury. When asked why he risked standing out, he said, "I am the red thread in the tunic." What a beautiful image. We each are a unique thread, woven with a pattern and hue that no one else carries. Our existence is singular, shaped by a one-time only blend of heritage, upbringing, struggle, and spirit. We are not copies, nor are we repetitions. We are once in history beings. And yet, how often do we dull our colors to blend in? We soften our voice, shave off our edges, paint over our vibrancy, all in the name of acceptance. We bend to social gravity, fearing rejection more than erasure. We hide in sameness, afraid that our difference makes us unworthy. Stoicism teaches us not to suppress our individuality, but to express it virtuously. It reminds us that excellence is not conformity, but authenticity rooted in character. Individuality without virtue is mere eccentricity, but individuality grounded in principle, in wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance becomes a beacon for others. It gives them permission to stand out too. If your nature is to be quiet, be quietly powerful, a steady flame that doesn't need wind to be seen. If your nature is to be eccentric, be boldly so, not as a performance but as an offering. Show others that authenticity isn't a rebellion, it's a return. It's a homecoming to the truth of who you were always meant to be. When we mute ourselves to meet expectations, we trade depth for decoration. We replace soul with surface. But what matters is whether your uniqueness is anchored in principle, whether your difference serves as a form of virtue, not vanity, whether you are marching to your own drum because it is right, not because it is loud, whether you are choosing discomfort over dissonance, remaining true to yourself even when the world does not understand. True courage is not always brash. It is often quiet, rooted, unwavering. It is choosing alignment over applause. Seneca writes, "It is the power of the mind to be unconquerable." In this one line, he offers a shield to anyone who has ever felt burdened by the weight of judgment or the pressure to conform. What makes you different may be your greatest strength. It is not something to be hidden, apologized for, or reshaped for mass consumption. It is the very lever through which your destiny moves, the distinct edge that sets you apart in a world that often celebrates sameness but is nourished by difference. Your divergence may be your calling card from the universe, a whisper that says, "You were not made to follow, but to forge." To suppress that voice is to turn away from the very essence of who you are. You don't need to be like anyone else to live well. The Stoics did not teach imitation, they taught integrity. And integrity means aligning with your true self, even if it means walking alone. You only need to be like yourself, but with clarity, with courage, and with the discipline to remain unshaken when others try to dim your light. This requires strength. It requires stillness. It requires the ability to see yourself clearly when others only see a silhouette. This discipline is not a momentary act, but a lifelong posture, a willingness to return to your center over and over, no matter who misunderstands you. Your task is not to mirror the crowd, but to become a mirror for others to see what courage looks like in its most personal form. Your life, lived unapologetically and with virtue, becomes a beacon. It gives others the permission they've been waiting for. Stand tall in your red thread. It was never meant to blend in. It was never meant to be invisible. It was meant to lead the eye, to guide the soul, to remind the world that authenticity is power, and that living truthfully, even when it costs you comfort, reputation, or ease, is the most stoic act of all. It is not indifference. It is commitment. It is not rebellion. It is resolution. And it is yours to practice daily, in silence, in struggle, and in strength. Chapter 4. Don't let others hold you back. Florence Nightingale once heard a voice that said, "Will you let what other people think hold you back from my service?" For years she did. Her family disapproved of her career aspirations. Nursing was not seen as fitting for a woman of her class. But she broke with convention. She upset her family. She followed her calling. And she changed the world. What chains are holding you back? Whose approval do you fear losing? Seneca warns, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Don't waste your life appeasing people who don't understand your mission. Their misunderstanding of your vision is not your failure. It's a reflection of their limits, not yours. Some people are simply not meant to see what you see. Their vision is clouded by fear, comfort, convention, or envy. And that's okay. Your task is not to convert the uninterested or prove yourself to the skeptical. Your task is to remain faithful to the spark inside you, to honor it with your energy, your time, and your integrity. Every moment you spend trying to explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you is time stolen from your calling. You dilute your strength when you argue with shadows. You were not born to meet their checklist. You were born to meet your potential. That potential doesn't need a committee's permission to unfold. It needs your devotion, your relentless return to purpose. The Stoics call this eupatheia, the calm, rational joy of living in accordance with your nature. Not someone else's version of success, not the borrowed dreams or standards of your peers, your nature. That unique configuration of character, calling, and conscience that belongs only to you. Eupatheia is not about elation or applause. It's the steady, inner light that shines when you act with alignment. It's a kind of joy that doesn't depend on outcomes or opinions. It's a joy rooted in truth. It is a state of peace that comes not from applause or external validation, but from integrity. Integrity is when your values, your actions, and your identity are synchronized. It's the rare strength of being able to look at yourself in the mirror without flinching. It's the deep breath you can take at the end of the day, knowing you acted not to impress, but to express something real. But that joy will never come if you're tethered to the expectations of others. If you're living on a leash of approval, your steps will always be limited. Their opinions will fluctuate with the wind. What pleases them today may offend them tomorrow. Their values may be shallow, conflicted, or born of fear. Many people are not living from a place of self-mastery. They are ruled by trends, ego, and insecurity. And if you anchor your self-worth to their view of you, you will live in constant motion, never still, never whole. A tree cannot grow strong roots if it keeps shifting to match the wind. In the same way, your soul cannot grow strong if you constantly bend to seek approval. Strength requires stillness. Purpose requires perseverance. You must know who you are and be willing to endure misunderstanding to become who you are meant to be. True joy, Stoic joy, begins when you detach your sense of identity from the crowd and attach it firmly to your own moral compass. Not the compass handed to you by a parent who never healed, or by a culture addicted to comparison, or by a friend whose love is conditional, but your compass, the one etched by truth and sharpened by experience. Your compass doesn't demand perfection, but presence. It doesn't follow trends, it follows truth, and in following it, you walk not the straightest path, but the truest one. From that place, you are free. Free from the distortion of others' expectations, free from the prison of false roles and hollow praise. From that place, you can serve the world as only you were meant to, authentically, courageously, and without pretense. And that's the final key. Your mission isn't just about you. It never was. It's about what you offer the world by showing up as your undiluted self. What you build with your voice, your gifts, your quiet persistence. What you heal in others by healing yourself. What you dare to do that others fear to even admit they want. When you abandon the need to be understood, you make space for something much greater, to be useful, to be whole, and to be at peace. You no longer perform for the spotlight. You become the light. You stop chasing clarity in others' eyes and begin forging it within. The path of self-trust is rarely crowded, but it is always worth it. Because once you walk it long enough, you realize you never needed the crowd to begin with. You only needed the courage to walk alone and the wisdom to know you were never truly alone when aligned with your purpose. Chapter 5. Focus on what you control. Epictetus began his discourses by dividing all things into two categories: what is up to us and what is not. Our actions, our thoughts, our beliefs. These are within our control. The opinions of others, how they receive our work, whether they understand us, these are not. When we hinge our happiness on likes, applause, or approval, we hand our peace over to strangers. It becomes a kind of emotional outsourcing, our inner balance at the mercy of outer turbulence. We let algorithms decide our worth, let the number of comments define our contribution, let whispers of praise or criticism steer our direction. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly. Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. And so, the sane person, the Stoic person, grounds their identity in what is fully theirs, their choices, their habits, their intent. They do not chase trends or cling to praise like a drifting raft. Instead, they build their foundation inward, where no storm can reach. A wise person anchors their worth in effort, not recognition. Like a soldier who trains for the battle, not for the crowd. Like a writer who polishes their words for clarity, not applause. Like an artist who paints for meaning, not markets. They create because they must, not because the world demands it. They find satisfaction in the process, not just the praise. In the deliberate craft of doing something well, in the rhythm of commitment, even when no one is watching. They take joy not in being recognized, but in being consistent. They find beauty in the invisible excellence, the kind that doesn't seek credit, that isn't shared on a feed, but that you carry inside you like a quiet fire. They measure success not in how many see them, but in how deeply they saw the task through. Not in the numbers, but in the honesty of their own effort. They do not ask, was it well received? They ask, was it well done? Was it right? Was it necessary? Their self-esteem is built from within, not constructed from compliments. It is resilient, not reactive. They find peace in their effort, not permission. And that peace is not passive, it is fierce. It is the quiet assurance that comes from living with coherence, from walking the path even when it's uphill and empty. This is what the Stoics meant by autonomy of the soul, not being unbothered by opinion, but being untouched by dependency on it. You are not impervious because you don't hear their voices. You are free because you don't need them to define your own. So let that be your model. Build your confidence not on shifting sand, but on solid stone, on the structure of your own effort, intention, and alignment with what is right. Let your values weigh more than approval. Let your integrity outlast applause. Let the meaning of your actions live beyond their reception. Do your part. Release the rest. Let others gossip. Let others misunderstand. That is their burden, not yours. Let them misread you while you stay faithful to your work. Let them underestimate you while you quietly over-deliver. Let their noise fade while your truth endures. Your burden is simply to show up, give your best, and keep your soul intact. That is enough. That is everything. You are not responsible for how your truth is received, only that it is delivered with honesty and heart. You are not required to be understood by all, only to be faithful to the mission placed within you. In a world full of noise, consistency and integrity becomes a signal. In a world obsessed with image, quiet virtue becomes a revolution. And in the end, that is what earns the respect that cannot be taken away, because it comes from within. Not a performance, not a projection, but a deep and unshakable knowing. It is not borrowed from public praise. It is not bestowed through flattery. It is not contingent on timing or trends. It is built, slowly, quietly, in the early mornings when no one is watching, in the difficult moments when doing the right thing costs more than you're comfortable with, in the silent decisions that shape the weight of your character, slowly, daily, stoically, not for applause, but for alignment, not to impress, but to embody, not to rise above others, but to rise within yourself. That is the true reward, not just living well, but living rightly, and knowing that is its own kind of triumph. Chapter 6. Take a closer look at that person. When someone criticizes you, ask yourself, who is this person? What are their values? Would I trade places with them? Do I admire how they live, how they treat others, how they handle adversity? Would I consult them in a crisis? Would I want to inherit their mindset? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When someone does you wrong, ask, what kind of person is this?" Not out of contempt, but out of curiosity and clarity. He meant, evaluate the source. Does their life reflect wisdom, self-mastery, or virtue? Or is it riddled with ego, fear, and insecurity? Too often, we internalize criticism without investigating its source. We treat every comment as gospel, every glance as judgment, every piece of feedback as a reflection of ultimate truth. But if you wouldn't trust them with your finances or your health, why trust them with your self-image? Why let their opinions shape your direction or disturb your peace? Not all feedback is forged in wisdom. Some comes from envy, insecurity, projection, or confusion. Giving weight to someone's voice should be a sacred act, earned, not automatic. It should be the result of respect, not reflex. A lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinion of sheep, and a wise Stoic doesn't hand over their identity to someone they don't admire. It is not indifference, it is intelligent filtering. A clear sense of self depends on careful boundaries, not just of time and energy, but of influence. You must protect your inner citadel from being occupied by unworthy opinions. That citadel is your peace, your focus, your vision. If you let anyone walk in with muddy feet, soon you're cleaning up their mess instead of building your purpose. Discernment is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is the line between being open and being overwhelmed. This isn't arrogance, it's self-respect, earned through reflection and guarded by wisdom. It's the strength to say, not every voice deserves an audience in my mind, because your mind is not a public forum, it is sacred ground. You must be its gatekeeper, not its servant. Some opinions are invitations to stray from your path, subtle snares disguised as guidance. Others are rooted in fear, envy, or the hunger for control, and many are simply noise, loud but empty. Learn whose opinion is worth listening to and why. Study their life. What does their discipline, compassion, courage, or character reveal? Do they embody the values you seek to cultivate? Have they built something beautiful from hardship? Do they speak from wounds or wisdom? If the answer is nothing useful, move on without resentment, just as you'd step over a rock in your path. Let wisdom in, let noise out. Let criticism from the wise refine you, sharpen you like a blade. Let judgment from the unwise pass through like wind through trees, moving leaves but never shaking roots. You cannot stop people from speaking. Words will always fly through the air like arrows, some sharp, some wild, some aimed straight at you, others flung recklessly in every direction. You cannot control their launch, but you can choose whether you let them pierce your skin or fall harmlessly at your feet. That is your power. That is your boundary. You can build armor, not the kind that hardens you into bitterness, but the kind that strengthens you in wisdom. An armor made not of silence, but of selective hearing, not of detachment, but of disciplined interpretation. You have a choice in every encounter. You can choose which words you carry home, whether they come from a place of truth or just a moment of someone else's chaos. You can decide which ones you hang on your wall as sacred lessons and which ones you let fall to the floor as irrelevant noise. You do not have to accept every sentence that enters your ears as fact. Not every word deserves your reflection. Not every opinion deserves a place in your story. This is one of the highest Stoic arts: to sort with reason, to filter with wisdom, and to respond from strength rather than react from insecurity. The more you practice this discipline, the less vulnerable you become to emotional turbulence. You begin to treat opinions like clouds, passing shapes, not permanent truths. This is the heart of Stoic discernment: to step back, observe the source, and ask, does this deserve to shape me? Does this align with my values, or is it simply noise dressed as importance? Most of the time, what seems urgent is simply loud. What appears powerful is simply persistent. And so, we learn to evaluate with calm, not react with chaos. We become selective, not to isolate ourselves, but to elevate the quality of what we allow into our minds. Just as we wouldn't eat food handed to us by a stranger without question, we should not consume every opinion without reflection. That is the Stoic way: not to silence the world, but to rise above its clamor with discernment and dignity. The goal is not deafness, but depth, not muting every voice, but listening with purpose and precision. Freedom is not found in withdrawing from the noise, it's found in no longer needing it to define you. You do not owe anyone access to your inner world. You are the gatekeeper. You determine what stays and what passes through. It's the art of mastery over your internal climate, regardless of the storms outside. And in that mastery, you become both calm and courageous. You can hear the roar and not flinch. You can feel the pull and not be moved. You remember who you are, even as the crowd forgets themselves. It's remembering that you own the doors to your inner life, and you alone decide who gets to enter. This is your sacred responsibility and your greatest source of peace. The world may knock, it may shout, it may plead to be let in, but you are not compelled to open the door. You are not a prisoner of opinion. You are not a servant of popularity. You are the steward of your soul. This is your shield, forged in reason, tempered by virtue, and carried with quiet strength. It protects without isolating. It defends without retaliating. It allows you to walk among noise, confusion, and contradiction without losing yourself in it. It is the invisible armor that lets you breathe deeply in chaos and act deliberately in disorder. That is not just freedom. That is victory. That is sovereignty. That is the reward for living with principle and not performance. Chapter 7. Zoom out. In meditations, Marcus repeatedly zooms out. He visualizes Earth from above, sees the brevity of human life, the insignificance of fame, and the futility of worrying about legacy. Alexander the Great and his mule driver were both brought to the same place by death, he writes. This cosmic perspective diminishes the sting of judgment. In 100 years, will it matter what your critic said? In 10, pulling back the camera reduces the intensity of the moment. Your embarrassment is a drop in a cosmic ocean, infinitesimal, passing, and quickly forgotten. So too is your fear of being misunderstood, which feels enormous when you're up close, but becomes laughably small when viewed from the wider perspective of a lifetime, a century, or the scale of the universe. What feels humiliating today is likely to be irrelevant tomorrow and completely invisible in the grand flow of time. This shift in perspective is one of the greatest gifts Stoicism offers. When you zoom out, truly zoom out, the tight grip of the moment loosens. The sting of disapproval, the awkward stumble, the long pause that felt like eternity, all of it begins to blur, to dissolve, to lose its sharpness. What once felt like a defining failure is revealed to be just a speck in the fabric of time. You begin to see that the people whose opinions you once dreaded are as fleeting as their judgments. Their faces fade, their words scatter, and their authority over your sense of self disintegrates with distance. Live for the eternal, not for applause. Aim for substance over sparkle. Care deeply about your character, not the curated image, not the filtered persona, but the raw, consistent self you meet in solitude. Applause is fickle, image is a mirage, but character endures. It is the only thing that remains when no one is watching, the foundation that holds even when no spotlight shines. The world may not hand you trophies for integrity, but within you'll carry the profound weight and warmth of having lived truly. When you zoom out, opinions that once loomed large become faint silhouettes, like ghosts of moments that never truly mattered. They are no longer towering mountains, but distant clouds drifting across a vast sky, ephemeral, shifting, insubstantial. They shrink under the long lens of time and perspective, and then it strikes you. What truly mattered was never their judgment, but your response. Not how sharp or loud their voices were, but how still, composed, and anchored you remained. Not what they misunderstood, but what you had the wisdom and courage to understand about yourself. Let perspective be your liberator. Let it dissolve the illusion that any single comment, any fleeting moment, any social misstep defines your worth. No stumble is the sum of who you are. You are not the reaction you provoked. You are not the label someone placed on you in passing. You are not the version of yourself frozen in someone else's snapshot. You are a soul navigating the vastness of existence, evolving, expanding, and carrying a purpose far greater than any temporary opinion. So rise. Rise above the noise, the echo, the static of momentary disapproval. Let the roar of judgment become background hum. Remember how brief every onlooker's attention span truly is, how often they shift focus, how fast their certainty fades. Remember how quickly today becomes yesterday, how fast the spark of gossip becomes ash. And with that remembrance, take back your power, not in defiance, not in arrogance, but in serene, grounded wisdom, because you were never made to live in a box built from borrowed expectations. You were made to walk freely with purpose that stretches beyond applause and outlasts the fleeting gaze. You were made not to shrink to fit others' narratives, but to expand in alignment with your own. That is the freedom of the zoomed-out soul. That is the power of seeing with clarity. Chapter 8. See people's opinions for what they really are. Marcus called public praise the clapping of tongues. It sounds poetic, but it's surgical. Praise is just noise, a passing vibration in the air, a fleeting echo of collective conditioning. It's not nourishment, it's not substance, it's simply air dressed up as meaning. Jerry Seinfeld, a student of Stoicism, echoed this sentiment with humor and precision. Applause is just people smashing their hands together. Behind the spectacle, it's mechanical, reflexive, rarely thoughtful. This isn't to say you should reject kindness or despise appreciation. It means you must never build your identity upon it. Never confuse applause for alignment or attention for achievement. See things for what they truly are. Likes are taps from distracted fingers, often impulsive and fleeting. Awards are just metal and wood molded by committee decisions. Viral fame is a statistical accident masquerading as validation. These are echoes, not essence. They are shadows, not substance. They are byproducts of the work, not the proof of its worth. Strip away the illusion. This is the essence of Stoic perception. This is what Marcus meant when he urged, remove the legend that encrusts it. Don't be fooled by the myth people build around success or recognition. Don't trust the aura that clings to prestige or the glow cast by popularity. Remove the metaphor, the myth, the marketing. What remains? What is the unpolished truth beneath the praise? This is the Stoic discipline of perception. It is about resisting the temptation to be seduced by symbols. A standing ovation does not confirm the soul of the work. A spotlight does not sanctify the act. A trending post does not indicate truth. The Stoic mind sees through these veneers. It sees the scaffolding of narrative and discards it, seeking only the bedrock underneath. It asks, what was done, why was it done, and did it serve virtue? When you remove the glitter, when you cast aside the performance and peel off the coating of expectation, you're left with something raw and unshakably real. Your craft, your purpose, your consistency, your intention, your integrity. That is your foundation, the stone upon which all else must be built. That is your quiet power, the strength that does not beg to be seen but cannot be ignored. That is your anchor in a storm of distraction, a point of clarity when the world bombards you with comparison and noise. That is your compass when novelty tempts you to abandon what matters most for what only appears valuable. Let that be your guide, not the applause, not the ratings, not the trend line, not the nod of the crowd, but the deep, unwavering truth that lives in the effort you bring, the meaning you breathe into your actions, the value you create in solitude, and the principles you uphold when no one else is watching. That is what endures when applause fades. That is what builds peace in a world that profits off of anxiety. That is what allows you to stand still with conviction when the world spins in search of validation. It is what gives you the courage to persist, not because you are being celebrated, but because you are being honest. The discipline to remain loyal to what is right, to what is real, is your greatest form of wealth. In that fidelity to your values, you become rooted. In that rootedness, you become unshakable. Chapter 9. Identify the opinions that actually matter. Caring what everyone thinks is foolish. Caring what no one thinks is dangerous. The Stoic path is in between. Discern whose opinion is worth your attention and why. Your life cannot be lived according to every voice that calls for your attention, nor can it be completely deaf to all feedback. The key is in learning to listen with discernment, not dependence. Marcus Aurelius cherished mentors like Antoninus Pius and Junius Rusticus. He welcomed their feedback, not because he needed their approval, but because he respected their character. Their wisdom, restraint, and virtue gave weight to their words. Seneca advised keeping a wise example always in mind, a Cato, a Socrates, a Zeno, someone you emulate, someone who serves as a kind of internal compass. These are not just role models, but filters. Through them you can ask, would this person give this same advice? Would they agree with this judgment? When you receive feedback, ask, is this person virtuous? Are they experienced? Are they wise? Do they walk with integrity? Are their words rooted in principle or in pettiness? Do they elevate the conversation or merely echo the noise of the crowd? Are they offering insight or are they projecting their own fears and limitations? If yes, consider it deeply. Such voices can refine us, sharpen us, guide us. If no, discard it without resentment or reaction. Not all judgment is poison. Some is a mirror. But make sure the mirror is clean. And remember, even a clean mirror only reflects what is already present. Your task is not to please the reflection, but to grow from it. The wise person does not isolate themselves from all critique, but neither do they open the gates to every passing opinion. They build a kind of inner advisory council, composed of the wise, the just, the principled, and only their voices echo in the chambers of self-reflection. Others may shout, but they are not heard. Others may judge, but they are not obeyed. That is the Stoic way, not silence, but selection, not indifference, but insight, not approval-seeking, but value-based listening. Let the voice that guides you be the one that calls you higher, not the one that simply calls you louder. Chapter 10. Don't chase respect, earn it. Reputation is not in our control, but character is. As the play Cato once said, we can't guarantee success, but we can do something better. We can deserve it. That single line distills the essence of Stoicism into a living practice. Focus not on what you get, but on who you become. Reputation may open doors, but it is character that determines whether you belong in the room. You may never be widely admired, but you can be worthy of admiration, quietly, consistently, regardless of recognition. You may never be loved by all, but you can love your own behavior. And that self-respect, earned through alignment, not applause, is the only kind that endures through silence and seasons. Respect, when chased, often eludes. It becomes a mirage. The closer you run toward it, the farther it moves, always dancing just beyond reach. It is fickle by nature, dependent on the mood of others, the moment, the angle of perception. But when we live with discipline, justice, courage, and wisdom, when we act not for recognition but from principle, respect finds us. It finds us in the most unexpected places, in a nod across the room, in the stillness after you've spoken truth, in the quiet gravity of a reputation earned, not announced. It becomes not something you demand, but something you radiate naturally, without effort. Let your actions be the loudest thing about you. Not your speech, not your performance, but the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. Let the texture of your daily life, the hard choices made in silence, the integrity upheld in discomfort, speak louder than any public persona. Let the quality of your work, the consistency of your values, the humility of your walk speak volumes. Earn esteem with the same quiet patience that you would cultivate a garden, but never require it, because if it is required, it is no longer esteem, it is a transaction. It is no longer admiration, it is compliance. And Stoic worth is not transactional, it is not bartered or bought, it is intrinsic. It is the steady voice inside that says, I did what was right, I stayed the course, I remained whole. Build a life that doesn't beg to be seen but cannot be ignored. Be the one who needs no stage to have influence, no spotlight to be radiant. Be worthy in silence, because the world is loud, and quiet excellence becomes rare and unforgettable. Be upright in solitude, because virtue tested in isolation is the most genuine kind. Be noble in obscurity, because greatness that grows in the dark can withstand any glare. Let your virtue shine, even if no spotlight ever lands upon it, because that is the Stoic's reward, not the echo of applause, but the echo of integrity in a soul at peace. Not the roar of a crowd, but the still satisfaction of a life well lived, a standard upheld, and a conscience clean. Chapter 11. Exposure Therapy. Donald Robertson, a leading expert on Stoicism and cognitive behavioral therapy, often notes that Stoic practices mirror modern psychological techniques, chief among them, exposure. This is the idea that we build tolerance not by avoiding discomfort, but by moving toward it, by embracing the awkward, the embarrassing, the uncertain, and coming out stronger on the other side. Zeno had to carry that broken pot of lentils through a crowded marketplace, an act that filled him with shame and dread. His teacher Crates did this on purpose, to expose Zeno to judgment, to reveal that humiliation is survivable. Cato, too, would wear dark robes when senators wore white, walked barefoot and bareheaded among the elite. These were not acts of rebellion for attention, they were training exercises, intentional exposures to social disapproval so that judgment would lose its grip on the soul. The Stoics believed that just as the body becomes stronger through resistance, the soul becomes stronger through exposure. You must deliberately place yourself in situations that train your resilience. Speak in public even if your voice shakes. Publish your work even when you fear it's not perfect. Share your beliefs even when you know they may be misunderstood. Be seen failing. Be seen trying. Be seen learning out loud. Growth doesn't happen in the shadows. You don't evolve by staying hidden. You grow by standing in the light, by stepping into visibility and discovering, often to your own surprise, that it doesn't burn you. The fear of judgment shrinks when you face it. The imagined horror gives way to a manageable discomfort, and then, often, to nothing at all. What once seemed unbearable becomes mundane. The monster in the closet was always smaller than the story in your head. So start small, but start deliberately. Seek opportunities to lean into your discomfort. Wear the thing you fear being judged for. Say the sentence you always hold back. Let the awkward silence come, and stay. This is how you train your soul to stand firm when the eyes are on you. This is how you become free, not by avoiding judgment, but by outgrowing the need to avoid it at all. Chapter 12. Ask yourself these questions. When you catch yourself caring too much about an opinion, stop. Ask, is this person wise? Do they live virtuously? Would I trade places with them? Is this something I can control? Will I still care about this in 5 years? If the answer is no, let it go. The Stoic path is not indifference. It's clarity, it's courage, it's integrity, and it's the deep, unshakable confidence that comes from living in alignment with your values, not someone else's. Stop letting strangers live rent-free in your mind. Free yourself, walk your path, earn your own respect, and let that be enough.